Thank you very much. I'm going to just do a couple things here. First of all, how many people have come to AWE before? First, second? Okay, good. So we have some new people. This is probably my fifth AWE, sixth, crazy. And I love that it's only 17 minutes from my house, so that makes me happy. So I am the advisor to the Shiba Inu token, or SHIB the Metaverse, do strategy for tokenization of everything, as well as the metaverse, the build out of the metaverse. I also work for entertainment companies that look at emerging technologies and try to figure out what the ROI. So why am I excited about this panel is I know how the entertainment industry works, and I understand how hard it is to move innovation. So I'm excited to hear from people who are outside the media and entertainment business to see how they move along innovation. So I'm gonna let each one introduce themselves, starting with Andy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. This is my second AWE, the first since 2019, and it's about a total 9-hour airplane ride from my house in central Pennsylvania. I'm with the Hershey Company. I've been there for about 6 years now. I take a look at emerging technologies, primarily outside of where you traditionally take a look at technologies within the CPG and food and beverage space. That's what brings me to places like AWE and CES and things like that, to take a look at how technology is driving, how technology is moving from a consumer, from a larger perspective, and how we can adopt those technologies within our lines of business and understand what it is that we need to do to move things forward for ourselves as well as our retail partners.
And how did you get that job?
Hook and crook just a little bit. It's a circuitous route. I'm a mechanical engineer by schooling. The vast majority of my professional career is in software development and then in the creative field in advertising. Out of advertising, I was at the last sort of few years in advertising, I was doing a lot of work with mixed realities, particularly a lot with virtual realities. And at the time, Hershey was looking for somebody to move into their innovation lab to help them take a look at those same technologies. So it just was a very good fit at the time. Started working across the enterprise, looking at XR. And then the past couple of years have been a very narrow focus within our commercial organization, within the sales and retail line, again, to take a look at how we can do things more efficiently, more better, for lack of better English, with our retail partners.
Great. Brian?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Brian Selzer, I guess 25 years or so, working across gaming, mobile, XR, follow the tech trends, AI, Web3, kind of done the whole gamut. Primarily as an entrepreneur, I've had startups. I founded a company in 2009 called Augmento, which was really the first venture-backed AR gaming company. Ori Inbar, who runs this AWE, was my partner at the time. And we were very early in location-based gaming. If you're familiar with Niantic and Pokemon Go, it was very early in really figuring out how to use your mobile device and turn the world into a playground and run around with geo-mapping. And we did a lot of working with IP like Halo and NBA and really kind of marketing games and figuring out how to drive traffic to locations and gamify that experience. Prior to that, I was managing Marvel's mobile business, so I have a background in comic books and pop culture, and that's kind of a love of mine. And so just games for the most part, but I've followed all the tech trends, like I said, and sort of leading up now to helping brands go into worlds like Roblox. I'm building quite a few worlds for some great companies there. And really just, for the topic of this, this conference, really fascinated and passionate about weaving between physical and digital and where you can find those touch points. So happy to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Gene?
Okay, so I'm Gene Feldman. I'm from Nestle Purina, North America. I work out of the St. Louis office, and this is probably, I think, my 6th AWE. It's hard to remember. A couple years I had to attend virtually, so it kind of gets muddled. But what I do is I work with our sales teams and our functional teams, such as our supply chain, logistics, category management, and work on how do we bring in new tools, especially new technology tools, to better complete our tasks. We've got a lot of our sales folks that are islands amongst themselves, so as many tools as we can give them to avoid throwing them into the wolves' den is really what we're looking for. And I've been doing it now for 8 years that I've been with the company. But just in case you asked the question, I have a feeling it's coming. I've actually kind of fell into this by happenstance. So I'm actually an old school high school teacher. I used to teach world history and psychology, and then ended up getting into the corporate world, into instructional design. And like Brian, I'm a lifelong gamer. I firmly believe I owe my career to the movie Tron. Yeah.
I'll give Tron credit as well.
And Tron 3's coming out, by the way. Just quick plug there. I'm not in it, but go watch it. But I really got fascinated as a very young kid about the idea of a digital world. Tron, the movie explores all pop culture, just really kind of drove me to it. And I love watching how pop culture drives innovation. So when I started at Nestle, luckily the HoloLens just came out. The Quest was getting ready to come out. We had a VP that asked if anybody knew anything about VR. My hand shot straight up in the air. So a lot of it was blind luck, but it was also the willingness to take the risk that really kind of put me in this position, along with pulling from a lot of my teaching background.
Amazing. I have a personal question I want to ask, because I did come from the corporate world at one point, and trying to convince leadership to do something that wasn't the norm was always really difficult for me. You'd have to build this deck, and you'd have to explain why you needed to do this or that, and it was usually a 6 to 8 week period before you even got an answer back, if you got an answer back. So in the jobs that you have, and actually, Brian, you as an entrepreneur who is selling your service to people like Purina and Hershey, how do you get them over the finish line to start having the original conversation of physical versus digital?
Great question. Yes, I love storytelling. Everything to me is storytelling, and brands all have their story. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe brands are always looking to find ways to bring that story onto different platforms, to different demographics, and really try to figure out the evolution of technologies as they evolve, and you want to time that just right. You don't want to be too early, bleeding edge. I have a habit of being very bleeding edge, and cutting edge is bleeding, right? Yeah, but or as a pioneer, they say you get the slings and arrows. So you don't want to be too early, but for some brands, even it is important to sort of be future forward and show that they're innovative. And so working with brands, I found that some have an appetite for being early, and others want to watch the playing field and decide where there is a true ROI, where they can step in and really understand, I can tap into my demographic through this platform because they're there, and I want to go with where the customers are. And so being somebody who's always looked at technologies, augmented reality and AI and all that, we're all kind of looking at where's the right entry point there. So the ROI on that is a different answer for every company you work with. If a company wants to make money, and that's, clearly we all are a lot of in this to have sales and make money, you have to find the use cases for those, right? And say, very clearly, how can I measure that and how can I make money? But for, I think, our industry as a whole, a lot of it is about engagement and really having customers feel like it's a lifestyle for them, and they want to, you want to speak at their level. And if you look at where I have an 11-year-old daughter, they're in worlds like Roblox or not as much on, our social media like Facebook and stuff. So there's always an evolution to this stuff, and it really is about having those conversations with the brands to say, what are you trying to achieve? And, let me help you.
Gene, how do you convince the people in your leadership to get them over the line?
Honestly, it was in 2 steps. So there wasn't a one-all answer to this, because you have different personalities at the leadership, as well as you have different roles. How you're going to position this in front of your CEO is different than how you're going to position it in front of legal. It's different how you're going to position it in front of finance. So you have to remember you have different approval givers at different roles that you have to be aware of. So What I found to be the most successful one was I played on FOMO, fear of missing out, okay? When the HoloLens came out, I basically begged my wife and gave up 2 years of birthday presents and Father's Day presents and everything to get a HoloLens. And I would take it to the office, and luckily I sat right in executive row. I'm not an executive, I just happened to sit there. And so as I was testing it, I was doing it in front of the VP of sales, in front of the director of finance. And so what they started seeing is they're like, again, FOMO, they wanted to see the interest. They were curious about it. So that was the first step I really did. And then I positioned it to where I really allowed pop culture to sell it for me. The one thing I think for all of us that really thrive on the pop culture aspect and why we keep bringing it up is pop culture gives us the ability to envision something. The minute we envision it, we now want to recreate it in real life. If you don't believe me, we're all carrying tricorders at this moment in time. Okay? Star Trek has fed so much of the innovation that we have done up to this point. And so for me, it was, I would actually show clips of Ready Player One. I would bring Tron in. And because again, as long as they can visualize, you can only get by saying, imagine this so many times before they get really irritated. And so for me, it was until I had a working demo, providing some type of visualization to get their imagination running. And then as soon as I could, I got them in a working environment. Regardless if it was Purina specific or not, they had to get into the headset to see the power. And I think a majority of us that have been in the field for a long time, I think one of the best pieces of advice we always give everybody is don't waste time to get people in the headset. Get them in as soon as possible because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I'll just, for my 2 cents, I'll lean into a bit to what Gene says. This is a medium and a suite of mediums that really does operate best under the mantra "show, don't tell," and that's really what I tell people when I'm working in this type of stuff. PowerPoint is the currency by which all decisions seem to be made through large corporates, but quite honestly, the fun can happen through the demonstration when you're doing XR. And I mean, I don't know how you all, but when it's really great when you're able to hold a meeting with senior leaders to demonstrate something, and they're putting on the headsets, and then everybody else is snapping photos of all those other senior leaders. So everybody at senior leadership has got other photos of other colleagues there with photos, and you see those being passed around and things like that. It's fantastic. The other thing I'll lean into just a little bit is I know sometimes my background again is engineering, so it's hard going into the situation sometimes where I assume that I know everything and I know the solution coming into a problem. But what I've found with this technology, set of technologies in particular, is that really trying to take a step back and assume that I don't know what the real problem is, and having a conversation with the people that I think I'm trying to solve a problem for. Quite honestly, the people that I think I'm trying to help is to do a little bit better job, at least for me, to get them to really kind of share what it is that we're trying to solve for. That way I can tailor the solution that I'm going to build and show to leadership. It's going to be just that much more resonant, that much more have a real world applicability, because you can see all kinds of great fancy videos online. Mm-hmm. You can go in and create the best demos that you want, but it's really got to sit from where we are, from the point that it's got to have some relevance towards a problem that for me, one of my internal partners has, one of our retail partners has, or a new capability to build out that somebody just has not thought of just yet that really is going to demonstrate some value for them.
Great. I agree with all three of you, and I'll tell you why, because I ran something called the Technicolor Experience Center, and the goal was to create proof of concepts as the tip of the spear for Technicolor to show people technology, A, but B, storytelling, and how you could use technologies to tell stories. We probably did anywhere, I think it was like 25 distinct and discrete experiences within 4 or 5 years that we were doing it. And then I like to say that I traveled the world on VR, because then you would take it around the world and you'd show these proof of concepts. They're very effective. I agree with you 100%, because if you tried to describe it in a deck, it never works out. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of this all. So you've got physical and you have digital. You also have a lot of really cool buzzwords. Every 6 months or 12 months, it seems, there's a new buzzword that's going to drop into your lap, and I imagine it's your guys' job to figure out where you're going to where that inflection point is for what it is that you're doing. So when you look at integration and strategy, so let's talk XR, AI, blockchain, let's talk tokenization, let's talk all of these crazy acronyms that are out there in the world. How do companies effectively integrate their physical and their digital marketing strategies to create a cohesive brand experience when you have all of these crazy bubbles that keep happening through technology, and it feels like it's happening a lot faster than it ever has before? Of course it is. But let's start with Eugene, and then we'll go to Andy, and then we'll go to Brian.
Yeah, so for a lot of it is, so the active case that we're actually doing right now is digitalization of our shelves. So taking our shelving software and our what's called planograms that we use on a daily basis and being able to convert them not into a digital twin, but into a functional twin. Since our shelving file has all the measurements, has the size, shape, image, it has everything it needs. So all we needed was an engine to take that information and build the 3D object on the fly. And so we found a great partner out of Australia that really is that created this ability for us. So but what it allows us to do is before we move a physical item, we can actually take it into the digital space, review it, ensure that we're making the smartest change, that we're being efficient, especially as category leaders, we have to be sure we're being fair across the board. But also it allows us to give us a quality control. So before we disrupt the shopping experience, before we go into the store, we're able to really set up the parameters of what we want, how we want it to look. But we're also seeing it to go into a whole nother point of view of that we're constantly looking, I call it the mall mentality. We're trying to find a way to make shopping fun again. When going to the mall or going to Sears on a Friday night with our grandparents was actually a fun experience. Now we go to the store and it's like, really, I couldn't order it online? Come on. And so how do we get people excited about the store? And so for Purina, one of the things that we've also looked at is being able to digitize our packaging to where almost bringing Pokemon Go into the shopping experience. Where to imagine that if you got a new dog and you walk into the dog food aisle, which food do you pick? What if you could have an AI and AR engine that you could say, I got this breed of dog, it's this old, it's boy or girl, and now all of a sudden you hold up your phone to the aisle and the objects are lighting up, letting you know
love that.
which product to buy.
You know how often I stare in front of all of the dog and cat food? I have a cat and two cats and a dog, and I'm like, I don't even know what to buy these things.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to buy. So that would be amazing.
Yeah, especially when you get into treats. Do you need a dental bone? Do you need a rawhide?
That's
Which
right.
ones? And so really it's about we need to make shopping fun and less taxing on the customer. I really find that over the years we've kind of transitioned to where instead of providing the service the customer wants, we're providing the service that we feel the customer wants. And it's kind of like being a student. How do you know whether they're a good teacher or not? You know what? Or why teachers are the worst students? It's because they remember what it was like. And so we have to kind of go back to that. And so for us, it's really impactful to blend the two together because the packaging can come alive. That's a whole nother avenue of being able to bring your customer in. And for us, I love you say buzzwords. So for us, we're not focused on storytelling anymore. It's all about narratives. It's about the narrative of the product. Now, really, what's the difference? Good question. The story is basically, this is why the product's so good. The narrative is, this is why the product's important. We actually put a whole new level of stress on it, and that's how we're trying to look at that digital blend between the physical.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, great stuff, Gene. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm a bit of a wet blanket on this topic here. And whenever this comes up, I'm reminded of
I'm gonna make sure you're not a wet blanket.
I'm reminded of a very funny joke which I cannot repeat here from the comedian Patton Oswalt from a number of years ago. And the punchline was science. We're all about coulda, not about shoulda. And that's what I think of when I always think of all these new acronyms and these new texts that come up. Yeah, we can do those things, but should we do those things? Right. And when you've got a company like ours, Hershey, with an incredible family of brands like ours, does it really make sense for us to invest the time and energy to go into any one of these technologies when maybe we don't quite understand it just yet, and does the brand like Reese, like Payday, does it really manifest itself well into one of those technologies, and does it really feel like a natural extension of what it needs to be, either digitally or physically? It's got to feel cohesive, and it's got to feel there's got to be some familiarity to it, but if you're going to put the technology layer on top of it too, it's got to feel new, like an extension of what that brand message and what that brand interaction is going to wind up being for the consumer, most importantly, but as well with, again, with our retail partners and anybody who's coming in contact with those brands. So I can't speak to any one of those technologies individually. It's just that, you know, we do tend to take a bit of a conservative, measured look at those things, because we do want to be the best stewards of those brands and the relationship that all of us, and I'm assuming some of you do, have with those brands, and so that you're not going to wind up popping into the metaverse and seeing something bizarre happening with Jolly Ranchers.
Oh my gosh, that could be so fun.
Again, you can imagine we have just a ton of brands that we've got. We've got all kinds of suggestions. Like, you could do this and you could do that. Like, you know, we could, but should we?
Right.
So that's at the end of the day, that's kind of the sort of thing.
We used to say that about XR too. Like, do you really need to do it in VR? Like, why are you telling the story in VR? Or why are you making it AR? Not everything needs to have this technical kind of infusion. I'm going to use the word fusion inside of it. It could just be a brand story. Brian, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, we all have our own lens that we look at this, and the way I'm looking at it now, having an 11-year-old daughter who's on Roblox and really understanding where Gen Alpha, Gen Z are interacting socially, you know, for a brand like Hershey or, you know, brands that want to tap into that demographic to understand 3D gaming, to go where they are going, because they're not, like I mentioned earlier, like on Facebook or Instagram. But, you know, I think we are, as a species, evolving. I think we're all at this conference that we believe that things are becoming more 3D and spatial, and we're kind of moving away from 2D screens and tap swipe interactivities to different ways of interacting. And so I'm seeing that in real time with my daughter, and of course, you know, keeping up with the space. I just believe in the trend that everything is getting digitized, digital twins you mentioned, that we're digitizing the world, we're digitizing products, everything has a digital twin of sorts. In these game worlds, we have avatars, and, you know, a lot of kids are taking a lot of pride, and, you know, that's the way they identify with their social circles, is the clothing they wear in a digital game, no matter how bizarre that might sound to certain people. So if you look at all those trends and you understand or believe that that's where the world is going, then I believe that the brands need to start putting, you know, their foot into that world. And just to kind of wrap up on this idea of fusion of, you know, hybrid marketing, or, you know, for 2 minutes I was using the word phygital. You might have heard, you know, physical, digital. It's kind of a cool way of saying both. But what did that mean, phygital? I mean, if there is a digital twin of a product and they have some sort of life together, you can make sense of that. You know, that was kind of a fun word to use, but as far as buzzwords. But the technologies that I'm looking at right now are not sexy technologies anymore, but they would be like a QR code. It's been around forever. The QR code is an amazing, powerful tool to understand, oh, there's a piece of digital content to be had here. And I still feel like there's a lot we could be doing in the physical world, in the real world, with signage and QR codes and letting people know that there is a digital experience to be had. Then the question is, do you want to go to a website and have a 2D experience, or do you want to have a spatial experience there? And then how do you bridge that into a game world or a digital world and play that game going back and forth, you know? And so I like that game. Yeah. I like the fusion. I really believe in it. I believe in the, how do I, you know, how do I tap into people that are in the game world? How do I tap into them when they go into retail stores? And kind of that narrative is very seamless between the two. I think there's an art to it. That's where I like to focus.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny about QR codes. I remember when they first came out, everybody said, nobody's going to point their phone at a QR code and then download an app. But the way that it's just so seamless now, no matter what you're doing, I mean, whether people are, you know, just getting information or buying crypto or doing this or doing, I mean, just QR code, I think is a genius move.
I've said that the one good thing that came out of COVID, if you have to look for one good thing, was that the QR code started showing up on all the menus in restaurants everywhere. And people had to learn how to take out their phone, because they didn't want the touching, right? And just scan the QR code. And it just, everybody knows now if you see a QR code, you open up the camera, and that's a big step, you know.
Right, it's
Yeah.
not that hard to do.
Yeah. So
Frictionless.
with web AR and all these other tools now, you don't have to download apps, and it is becoming more seamless.
It feels like a remarkably low-tech bridge into a lot of high-tech experiences,
Exactly.
and that's really, really why. But one thing I want to mention just real quick is I'm glad to hear you say the word phygital.
Yeah.
Our VP for category management loves that word, and I'm going to say, Dave, I'm sorry I didn't
Yeah.
mention it first.
No, and I was also going to add that if you want to see kind of a really good example of what we're talking about, actually, on the expo floor, there's a company that's selling AR board games. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see it. I bought one. I mean, it was so cool. And it's a beautiful way to describe the blend of what we're actually talking about. It's a board game that you use an AR app that brings the whole board game to life, and you get to pass the tablet around. That all of a sudden, it's not a single player experience. It's 3, 4 people. Takes multiple hours. And even though it's a game, I actually got it to take back to my office. Because what I'm going to do is now show this is what we're talking about. This is an active, working example. It may not have anything to do with pet food, but it's getting them to visualize it. Going back to Andy's point, show, don't tell.
So I have a question. Wasn't on the list. Sorry, guys. But how much research are you doing with your customers? Like, are you actively asking your customers what they want? And then does that research then go into the marketing department where they may come run to you and say, hey, this is what came up in the research. This is what we think the customers want. Does that ever get into your worlds?
Yeah, I'll go. Absolutely. So the customer's role, we always look at least from Purina, that it's a partnership. That we have product to sell, the brick and mortar store has the ability to sell it for us. So we definitely like to include them on the conversations, and we actually have repeated conversations. So to actually kind of give you kind of a timeline, so when I first started all this, the first thing I did 8 years ago was I brought together my internal customers, all the different teams that I work with. I brought representatives and said, if we go down this VR route, what do you want? What's it going to look like? It cannot be me. And it's got to be the best idea wins. That's one of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes. And then from there, it was getting in front of the customer's eyes. And now to where we're at a point where earlier this year, we actually had one of our customers reach out to us and say, we're getting ready to do our Christmas display of 2024. That stopped me for a second because we're in March. But what they wanted was they want this 9 months to prepare. So we actually set up all their Christmas displays, and we're able to see it months in advance and in a real true-to-life situation without having to buy a competitor product, without having to set up physical shelves. And so for us, for me, it was really about getting it, always making sure that the customer, whether internal or external, has a piece of ownership in this. The last thing people want is software dictated to them. We love the software that makes us feel better. It's just kind of for the same reason why people chose Android over Apple, and I am guilty of this. That's why I'm bringing it up. I refuse to go to the iPhone because Android gave me freedom. I was not forced to apps. I could have anything I wanted. I could unlock it. However, I've learned I was wrong. The ecosystem. And so that's where you have to start making those trials and kind of figuring out really what's going to be best to really fit your need, but also understanding that sometimes safeguards are actually really important. They don't prevent you, they're just keeping you on the straight and narrow is all they're doing.
How much does research happen with your company?
Quite a bit, as you can imagine, and I want to lean into a bit, again, following shoulders of giants, as it were. Leaning into what Gene said with regards to bringing in your retail partner, your customer, whoever it might wind up being for these ideas, it gives them a sense of the ownership and responsibility as important as anything else to see something to the end. That end could be a failure of an experiment, but it could very well be a success as well. We've found very, very much is that when you involve our retail partners with some of this research, and we have to be very open ourselves into what it is that we're finding to be very proactive to it, in that you find very often a path towards a pilot for something or a path towards a proof of concept when you're working on something. And those are really the conversations that we want to drive research towards. It's one thing to just be able to put something together and put together great PowerPoint or a XR demo, but it's another thing altogether to actually drive that towards a proof of concept where you can actually flesh an idea out, try an idea, do some of that iteration we heard about in the session earlier today.
You have anything to add, Brian?
That was great answers.
Okay, so let's go to technology and innovation. We sort of touched on this, but I want to go a little deeper. What emerging technologies are most promising in bridging the gap between physical and digital?
I mean, I think we could all agree that the golden egg is AR. You know, or not even really AR. I should say AR in the form factor with an AI component to it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yep, we need a blend. We really do. It's not going to be one software that's going to fit all. I think a lot of us that have been down this road for quite some time is that you'll oftentimes hear us talking about the end. The end is the glasses. I mean, for me, I'm notorious for saying the minute I can wear it on my motorcycle, it's good. You know, and I think that's what we're all looking for. We want something that's going to fit on our face, that's going to be inintrusive, that's going to give us the data that we need, but also is going to be the assistant we want. So, like whenever I refer to like the AI component, I don't refer to artificial intelligence. I refer to it as assisted intelligence. That as humans, we strive for leisure. Anything that helps us get to our day off, the quickest is the best. It's just our nature, our condition. And so if we can create a device that gives us that ability to work more efficiently, to work smarter, to get us to that leisure space, and to assist us in doing the tasks that are at hand that we may not have the skills or knowledge to do, that's where we're going to win. And for me, it's about getting to that point, getting to that end point. We're slowly right now, I think, at a really good inflection point that we're seeing the movement towards that final produce, or I'm not talking about vegetable here, but to the final product, we're getting close. I mean, there's some of the products on the floor that, I mean, imagine taking, you know, a couple, like for me, I always like looking at taking like 3 or 4 of them and combining them into one. That's the solution I need. I need a piece of this and a piece of that.
And you really think people are going to walk around with headsets on their face?
If they're in this form, that's the kicker. They have to be in a form. I mean, I'm going to point out, and she's not going to be happy about it. But, you know, I've watched somebody for 2 days with the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, taking notes, taking video, and I'm hitting her up after this is done to get copies of everything. But that's the thing is that look at how people are accepting the Ray-Ban glasses. You know, look at how Copilot was accepted. Copilot was the fastest integration I have ever witnessed. 2 months from when it was released to when it was in our company. It took me 4 years to get spatial through. Okay, you know, I mean, so that's what I kind of look at is we're seeing the integration go faster. We're seeing the technology starting to merge. We're seeing cell phones come out getting AI. Facebook just added their AI engine, Copilot. We're seeing this blend slowly come together. And right now, I think, like I said, we're at an inflection point that I think we're waiting for the right lightning in the bottle of technology that's really going to bring this all together. We've got little pieces, and it takes some of us that can actually see them all together, but it's really waiting for that key point. And I think once they get into the form of eyeglasses, I think that's where that's really going to be the kicker. Yeah.
I'll just say that I agree with the eyeglasses again, but I'm going to deviate for once from something that Gene mentioned. And one thing that I'm kind of interested in, and I'm sorry that it's not a topic here that we've been talking about much during the past couple of days, is under the umbrella of AI, it's large action models. I've been reading a lot about large action models, and every time I think I've got my hands on what they are and how I can use them, it's like a sand. It's falling through my fingers, and I'm not quite sure I've got an exact grasp on it. But the idea that we can have agents string together and do actions and tasks for us, prompted or unprompted, then we're really starting to talk about the idea of getting some really intelligent agents, getting it to do stuff. Large language models and different multimodal models for doing things that are simply generating content for us, or basically building, quote unquote, generating content for us is one thing, but to actually have tasks and chores and things done for you intelligently, it's intriguing, very intriguing, and like I said, I'm trying to figure out how we can figure out how to make use of that. But that's the tech that I'm kind of looking at right now.
Yeah, I'll just kind of add to that because clearly we're all here at AWE, augmented reality. I mean, the mixed reality is my sweet spot. I love that. I mean, I love the contextual data, understanding the world at a deeper level because of that digital overlay. As somebody who loves gaming and game worlds and 3D and all that, you know, pop culture magic, as somebody who loves reality and, you know, being face to face with people, and hopefully we don't lose that, you know, eye contact and going out in nature and all that. I'm all about like the balance, and for me, mixed reality provides a really great balance. So I'm a big believer in that. I believe on the hardware side, the glasses, I think we're gonna have hundreds of different devices out there for every, you know, thing. And if you're in a enterprise environment, having some kind of a work task, you might need a different type of a device than if you're out in public and you want something that's more fashionable and all that. So I'm a big believer in the hardware and the software and all of that. And I will just say that having been in the AR space since like 2008, one of the early people in this space, and seeing all the trends, and I've always, throughout my whole career, I've always said it's 5 years away, it's 5 years away, every year, if it's 5 years away. And you know, and now we have AI, of course, and we're adding that into the equation, and that's bringing its own magic to it. There is magic to it, and that, you know, you'll find certain instances where you know the killer app when you see it, and having it all come together the right way. So, I mean, you see that, you have certain things that you can point to where you're like, this is the right way to do it, in my mind, the right way, the smart way to do it.
Well, no, I think like Pokemon Go was like one
Yeah.
moment. Like it was one thing to go into a headset and watch an experience and feel the story and feel the haptics, and like I did a lot of that stuff. But when you saw Pokemon Go and how that just changed the trajectory of the way AR was actually looked at and how it was integrated into the real world.
Can I riff on Pokemon Go? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ori, who manages this conference, and I had a venture-backed company in 2009. So this is pre-Niantic, pre-Pokemon Go. And I came from the game space, and really, I managed Marvel's mobile business, and I was really trying to find the intrinsically mobile experiences. So not just playing a game on a screen, where I get lost into that screen, but how do I bring the game into the world with me? And that really led me down the path into augmented reality. And that led me down the path of geolocation and geospatial and maps, and really just trying to combine and sort of put these technologies together into this idea that I had that I could just turn the world into a playground. And that led to really what I think is relevant business model today, and it kind of takes us full circle, is the idea of being able to use games and fun, engaging mechanics to mobilize people. And Pokemon Go clearly was lightning in a bottle. It was the right IP, the technology had matured, the sort of treasure hunt collectability of these cute little pets and all that. I'm still not seeing, just to kind of, you know, give my little view on things, I'm still not seeing a lot of using location-based services for driving people into, we talked about that briefly, about driving them into a retail store to interact with a Hershey, you know, product, and there's all kinds of ways you can reward and do that stuff. So I'm hoping, I'm just expressing to this group and, you know, to everybody, that I'm hoping that people see that all the pieces are together now as we move into, you know, the phone is perfectly fine for this stuff, but, you know, eventually maybe we want a hands-free experience. But being able to bridge, just try to pull the whole themes together again, being able to bridge the game world, the people who love 3D assets and avatars and spatial and all that, into an overlay with augmented reality glasses, and show that the brands have that as part of their narrative, right, to use your terminology. There's something really powerful here that I'm not seeing a lot of yet. And I'm just hoping that the more we get together, the more we have these conversations, we do find the ROI, we do find the reasons to build, and that people get motivated to talk more and build these things. I feel like we're going to start to see more of that soon, hoping, optimistically.
So I got to like only three or four of my questions, and we're 13 minutes left. I'm going to ask one more question because we're going to do questions in 3 minutes, so give 10 minutes of questions. But I want you to put your futurist hats on, and we're going to go 5 years from now. I said 2025 would be the year of, you know, real immersive experiences where you actually had enough time to, but I'm asking you 5 years from now, where are we going to be?
I'll kind of go because this kind of tag. It actually asked the question I wanted to tag on to the last answer. Is so me as studying history throughout a majority of my early life. One of the trends I saw was after a tumultuous time in human history, there was always a renaissance. If you really look at a renaissance, always followed because we need something good to replace all the negativity that occurred. Well, I think we can all agree we've had a tumultuous time the past couple of years. And the digital revolution has already occurred. The information revolution has already occurred. So what are we faced with? And that's where I see a digital renaissance. I see that we've seen a lot of the evil, a lot of the negativity that a lot of this technology can do, but we have a lot of people that are at this conference or other conferences that are trying to safeguard it to basically create this renaissance because we don't want to show the bad. We want you guys to experience, we want everybody to experience the beauty that this technology provides. I mean, we've been talking about, within marketing, but imagine being able to blend the digital and physical with other aspects. So example being that what if you could put somebody in a headset and they could experience what it's like when a panic attack sets in, what it's like when a migraine headache sets in. Now we can blend physical and digital with empathy. We can blend it with understanding, comprehension. It branches. But the big thing it comes down to is that we're all on the same mission of trying to make this technology happen and bring the beauty of it. And that's where I really see within about 5 years, we're going to have a renaissance because the lightning's going to happen. I truly believe we're going to be in glass form. The form factor is going to be changed again. But to Brian's point, there's going to be probably about 8 variations of them. But I also believe holograms are going to start making a bigger presence. I really believe that's the next iteration because going back to Tron 2 ended in the most upsetting way. They were brought out of the digital world into the physical world, and the movie ended. Holograms allow that. Sorry, I live by that movie way too much.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, but it comes. I actually have Flint's Arcade hanging up in my garage. But
I wish I had my poster because I did the second Tron.
Oh, the second.
I would have given it to you.
Oh, I loved it. Those movies are just awesome. But it gets the idea of that holograms now bring in augmented reality experiences without the need of a headset. I know there's a really good company called Igloo. They actually make immersive rooms where you don't even need a headset. You can bring 5, 10 people in and bring up an APK and you're going. That is it, because for me, VR right now is a solitary experience, shared reflection. We experience it alone, but then we like talking about it at the end. It's like going to a movie with somebody. You're not allowed to talk to me, but you're here so that way I can talk to you afterwards. But where VR needs to be is it needs to complete the 2 conditions of humanity, which is it needs to be a shared experience, shared reflection. We are social creatures by nature, even the introverts in us. And so in order for what I see is VR becoming, instead of a solitary experience, it's going to become a shared experience through technology such as avatar or AI and holograms and the new form factors that we're going to see. So I truly believe that's all going to lead to this renaissance.
So in 5 years, the renaissance, there's been a lightning in a bottle, and we're going to have holograms around us.
I don't think the holograms will be prevalent, but I think they will be there. I mean, Back to the Future 2, I think, set the precedent for that. For those of us that, like I said, live in pop culture, that shark still sits in the back of our memory banks. But I do think they're going to start coming because we're now starting to see more and more of that technology come up. I mean, a great example is the Dome in Las Vegas. I mean, that thing is just absolutely technologically beautiful. And now, if we can get it off the wall into our environment, I think that's where we're going to see some real big movement.
Brian, 5 years. What's going to happen?
Yeah, there's so many areas that I would love to talk about. The 2 that I've been thinking about a lot, I will share. And one is, as I'm building in game worlds, I'm bringing great brands into Roblox right now, Visa, the Olympics, and they're kind of figuring out how to navigate in these worlds. And then there's the idea of an NPC, if you're familiar with game language, and non-playing characters. And I'm seeing a trend now where these non-playing characters are getting, an infusion of AI, and they're basically replacing like the FAQ, if you will, because you can now just walk up to a character and ask questions, and it can tell you, tell you things that you want to learn. And I believe that's going to mature really rapidly to the point where we have our virtual assistants or coaches or anything that is trained on a model that we can have a natural conversation with. And I think that's going to go across gaming, also into XR and AR, but just having, you don't even necessarily have to visualize it as a 3D asset or a 3D avatar. It could just be a voice in your ear as a coach or somebody that, I was literally on the way over here talking to ChatGPT in almost a natural dialogue. Like, what do you think of this, or tell me about this? And it can query the web pretty quickly and come back with conversational, and you can think about where it is today, and it's not a distant jump to have the conversation be faster and just feel like you're actually talking to a human being. So I see we're gonna see more of that sort of natural language come into these NPC avatars. And the one other area that I'm looking at and tracking is just, again, going kind of with AI and XR and 3D, is the idea that I'm advising to a transmedia company, an entertainment company, and they're starting to adopt these tools. And I think about big Hollywood, like Disney and feature films, and we were all raised, we're talking about Tron, we were all raised to go sit in a seat and pay money to be told a story that is visually beautiful. But the younger generation are creating their own stories. They're building in these tools, Minecraft and Roblox, and their imagination is going wild, and they've got some pretty easy tools now to create 3D worlds. And I'm watching the trend now to prompting an image into reality in 10 seconds that looks beautiful. I mean, that's controversial. We could talk about that a little bit. But it's also moving into 3D. So I'm imagining a world, maybe not in 5 years, but I definitely see the world being where you just think of an idea and you can talk it into reality. I mean, it's so science fiction sounding, but it's not. It's,
No, I've seen a lot of AI
Yeah.
that's doing that now. Text to animation.
Yeah.
Text to story.
That blows my mind. I mean,
Yeah,
the stuff,
it's crazy.
yeah.
I mean, it's not perfect, obviously,
No, yeah.
but I think that'll definitely be here in 5 years. I don't think it's going to be Hollywood grade, but
No, not Hollywood great, but we can see, my favorite quote, William Gibson, cyberpunk fan, is like, the future the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. So as a futurist, you can just see that technology put together with that technology is going to be the future because it already exists. They just haven't gotten together yet, and talked about how to combine it. So you can see all these pieces and just say, we just got to combine these three little things and the future's here. Yeah.
I don't want to push you, but you're next.
Well, all right, I'll try to keep it brief because we do want to give some time here for Q&A, but I think I would deviate, a bit from the idea that, just the idea of shared humanity, I think, has been a great philosophical thing for the longest time, but I think in 5 years, we're going to have to find ourselves questioning a bit what a shared humanity is because of the hyper-personalization that is going to be capable through all of the visual mediums that we'll be consuming, be they AR, XR, VR, what have you, but also because of all of the data, particularly all the biometric data that we are going to be generating, sending out to the world, and allowing entities, CPGs, other commerce entities to be able to consume and feed information back to us.
It's a whole nother panel, my friend.
Well, all that is to say, I think we're going to be having to have some very interesting philosophical and practical discussions about what it is to be in a shared space of humanity in 5 years when we have the ability to create our own humanities and create our own spaces that aren't going to be shared with anybody else. So again, wet blanket, I'm sorry, those are my opinions, not those of the Hershey Company.
I love that opinion. Okay, I think we're going to do questions. Are there any questions? Come on. These people are doing crazy stuff.
I got a question here.
Wait,
You're the camera guy now.
wait, you guys, we have someone who's actually started.
Trying to hear this one question.
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, say
Go ahead.
it again?
Just your experience over the years, what has changed as you've been participating in AWE for so many years, and you're looking at XR, VR, how it has changed in the last 4 or 5 years from your industry standpoint?
Yeah. Can I take that on somebody who's been here since year one?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so I believe you were asking, like, AWE and these conferences, how things have changed over the years, right? I was just walking the expo hall, and I've been doing this for 10 years now, I think, as a conference, or 15, yeah. I'm losing track, but since 2010, I believe, so yeah, about 15 years. And when I'm walking through, I'm kind of thinking what's old is new again. Now, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of the same thing, but it's of course much more advanced now because we have better hardware and we've got better software and things are getting easier and the price points are coming down. It's still not that different, I guess is my answer. We're still early. I mean, it was early 15 years ago. We're still early. But you can also see how much advancement and how much progress has been made. So I know I'm answering that two ways because there really are two answers. It depends on the lens that you're looking through. As somebody who's on this side of the fence, as far as building it, it's kind of slow going, you know, and it kind of is happening at too slow of a pace perhaps, but it's happening at the pace it should be happening at, right? And so, I mean, I'm excited by this conference growing. The industry is growing, it's maturing. As somebody who has had to teach people about opening up the camera on a phone and what that meant and what you were looking at, we're past that now, right? So that's a good thing, and now it's just it's a matter of building, you know, on some really good platforms.
We got time for 2 small questions.
Hi, thank you for your panel. Appreciate it. Proud mother, went from Roblox, Minecraft, Gorilla Tag, right? He's 9 now. He started at 7. And I'm in media. I've been in media for a very long time. But I took up the helm of ed tech for a reason. And so my question to you is about the future of work. And so, having listened to everything, what do you believe is going to happen, flash forward 10 years from now, where our kids are now dynamic individuals with dynamic personalities and security and data? And is work going to be just natural because of their aptitude and what they're into?
Okay, can I take this?
Thank you.
So it's so funny because I have 3 kids too, and when I started in emerging tech, I would look at the trends of what the kids were doing, and my son was a really big piece of that. And what I feel the future of work is distributed workforce. I'm a very big proponent of multicultural workforces, number one. Number two, it's not necessarily, and sorry about universities, but I think it's more about skill building and having multiple certifications on your resume of what you are able to do. And I also think that the generation of, my son's 18, the generation of the 18 and younger is going to be a lot more creative in everything that they do. Because I believe spatial will actually take over the workforce, thereby not needing to be in the same room. You will be working shoulder to shoulder with people in China, India, everywhere around the world. And when you build the skills that each one of them have, you actually create such a more diverse product, service, situation. That's the biggest problem with America, is we are very myopic in our thinking. And so I believe the future is more creative, more distributed, and also much more, a much easier, frictionless way to learn because you're wearing these headsets.
Each of these questions could be followed up, and you can have a quick follow-up. I got to keep the track on time, but
No worries.
You guys can also come off the stage and answer lots of questions.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll give one more opinion on
Sorry,
this one.
I thought I was trying to keep it on
I know.
track.
I was just going to add just a real quick follow-up since he allowed me to, is also it's going to be, I think, clear communication. One of the things that AR and VR does is it adds nonverbal communication back into our structure. So I think the kids that are in these experiences, they're not missing out on the things that we missed out on by going to text messaging and emailing. They're going to actually be able to engage with people in a full engagement where they can see the heads move, bodies move. They can start reading that body language. So I actually think it's going to actually increase the level of communication, that they're going to be much clearer communicators than we were.
They're just going to use shorter words.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, hello. I thought I fell.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.